through all of that, eventually I ended up in jail, right? At that time, I was addicted to a bunch of different kinds of drugs, cocaine, and I was addicted to pharmaceuticals and all kinds of drinking alcohol and doing all these things. So I end up in jail. I'm going through withdrawals in the jail cell for like 3 days. And it's a packed jail cell because in this town that I live in, like the jails stay packed. It's just packed. And I know everybody in there. And I'm starting to think, well, this is going to be my life. This is actually the first time through all the times that I've done completely stupid stuff, including robberies and whatever, that I've ever actually been in jail, right? Because for some reason, I just thought I was too smart. I wasn't going to get caught or whatever. So I'm in there. I see all these, not all my friends, but people that I know that are in there. And I'm thinking this is going to be my life. And I'm like, I remember being taught like there's another way, there's a righteous way. Maybe there's something to that idea that there's somebody that can forgive me and somebody that'll help me set on the path of the righteous way. So in my mind, I'm just like thinking about this, and I start praying. I cry out to God in this time, and I'm like, if you care about me, if you're real, if you care about me, please just let me know, because I'll do anything for you, because I don't want to live like this anymore. I've tried my way, has ended up in pain. I don't like this anymore. Within minutes, the cell opens and a man comes and grabs me and he calls my name, get me, and I go in front of these detectives. And at that time, the task force was investigating me and some of my friends and all that. So I figured they were trying to ask me questions. I go in there with my head hung, and my head's hung, and I'm just like, kind of just, at that point, just kind of not really wanting to say anything, just really, devastated, I guess you could say, in my mind, mentally, just, tired as well, because I'd been up for 3 days straight. And a guy answers, he says, "Hey, John." And I look up and I recognize this guy. He looks a little different, but I used to play in bands and stuff, and he used to have long dreadlocks. He had like his nose pierced right here and tattoos and all that. And he was sitting there across from me dressed like a detective, and I'm like, oh man, like, what's up? And he's like, I hadn't seen him in years, mind you. This has been, probably 6 years since I've seen the guy. He's like, what happened, man? What is going on with you? And he hears my name and he says, God told me to get up and come pray for you right now. And I was like, so he pulled me out of the cell to pray for me. And at that moment, man, I felt this rush of, and what I can only describe as possibly the Holy Spirit, like rushing through me, and my addiction kind of leaving my body. Like I felt renewed and forgiven, and all of those different things all in one moment.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Don't Be Deceived podcast. I think today is going to be one of my favorite episodes, but we shall see. Hello, Lauren. How are you?
Hey, Julia. I'm so excited to be here again with you, interviewing another person and hearing another amazing testimony of faith.
Yes, I completely agree. So before we bring him on, you should all know who Jon Pounders is. For those of you living under a rock, he is one of the, I'd say, co-hosts or main hosts of Now You See TV. He has his own independent personal YouTube channel as well. And he is, as far as I'm concerned, an advocate for Christian masculinity and a Nephilim enthusiast like me. Here he is, Jon Pounders.
Woo! Hello. Thank you for that introduction. I definitely agree with everything you're saying there. I appreciate you guys, you girls, being doing this. I know it's early in the morning for you, it's in the evening for me, and trying to get these times together for us both has been really difficult. And so like we finally got it, and I'm really excited to do this, and I've been wanting to get back with you on a show for a while, so exciting.
Yay.
Yeah,
good stuff. Go ahead, Lauren. I feel like you should start off because I introduced it.
John, would you like to begin with sharing a bit about yourself, about your journey, your story about your faith?
Yeah, so I can start off with basically, this is kind of sums up who I am and why I am the person that I am today. So I grew up in a Christian home. My mother and my father are both Christian. My dad worked all the time. He actually had his doctorate, and he was studying. He's a teacher, a scholar, all of those things. I didn't see my dad as much as I'd like, unfortunately, because he was always working, but I did respect the man that he was because of that. My mother took care of us. She eventually went to work. I grew up in a kind of poor home. We were poor because my father was a teacher, and teachers really don't get paid a lot. I know people think teachers are get paid. I don't know if they think that or what, but in America, teachers don't get paid a whole lot. So my dad was a teacher. My parents both had to go to work in America. I don't know how this is in Australia, but in order to make it, like if you're just a normal family, both parents have to go to work. And that's what happened with my family, and which is something why I advocate masculinity to this day. And I'll tell you why when we get to it. But during the time period of this happening, I was kind of left to my own devices. So I kind of ran the streets. We lived in a poor neighborhood, got into a lot of trouble, just so many different things that I could go into. But I mean, just you name it, we did the stupid stuff, everything stupid in the neighborhoods where everybody does stupid stuff. We did it, right? We did it all. So we went through that part of my life, still going, to church, Christian school, even after I graduated, going to seminary, just because I'm so interested in that stuff. Like I said, I've always been a geek when it came to like history, ancient history, Greek mythology, all of these different things. And the Bible was part of that, compass of things that I like to read. And so I went there, a lot of doubts in my life going through this. I didn't really believe necessarily that God cared about me, if he was real. And because I'd never heard from him, I never, all these different things. And I started, like I said, when I'm going into all these different Greek gods and Greek mythologies and all of that, you start to get this syncretic idea that God is in fact those gods as well. It's the same thing. There's nothing really different, because in America, and I'm sure in Australia as well, it's so Romanized. Christianity it's become basically a subversion of the Roman pagan worships, right? When it comes to like things like Christmas, for instance, Saturnalia dates back to Saturnalia and Odin worship and all kinds of interesting things as well. And then Easter dates back, goes back to Ishtar, goes back to sacrificing babies and dyeing eggs red, which is a pagan custom they used to do. They would add them red with the blood of those infants. I could go on. There's so many things tied in with that. Also, the egg-laying rabbit, which would be, Ishtar, Semiramis, who, according to mythology, came down as an egg-laying rabbit and laid these eggs and, kind of birthed monsters or whatever. So this all going to go back to that. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this is the same thing. So to me, it was just learning something else. But as time went on, my heart kind of grew colder and colder. I wasn't afraid to do illegal things. I wasn't afraid to do a lot of things that I continued to do with my life, just, fulfilling the lusts of my flesh, doing whatever I felt like I wanted to do. And so with that comes a bit of hardness and a little bit of, I would even say almost just lack of care for other people type mentality that came with that.
Right.
And through all of that, eventually I ended up in jail, right? At that time, I was addicted to a bunch of different kinds of drugs, cocaine, and I was addicted to pharmaceuticals and all kinds of drinking alcohol and doing all these things. So I end up in jail. I'm going through withdrawals in the jail cell for like 3 days. And it's a packed jail cell because in this town that I live in, like the jails stay packed. It's just packed. And I know everybody in there. And I'm starting to think, well, this is going to be my life. This is actually the first time through all the times that I've done completely stupid stuff, including robberies and whatever, that I've ever actually been in jail, right? Because for some reason, I just thought I was too smart. I wasn't going to get caught or whatever. So I'm in there. I see all these, not all my friends, but people that I know that are in there. And I'm thinking this is going to be my life. And I'm like, I remember being taught like there's another way, there's a righteous way. Maybe there's something to that idea that there's somebody that can forgive me and somebody that'll help me set on the path of the righteous way. So in my mind, I'm just like thinking about this, and I start praying. I cry out to God in this time, and I'm like, if you care about me, if you're real, if you care about me, please just let me know, because I'll do anything for you, because I don't want to live like this anymore. I've tried my way, has ended up in pain. I don't like this anymore. And so not really expecting anything in return, because there's been times before where I've cried out to God. I remember, laying out in fields, crying out, just asking God to answer me if he's there. So I didn't expect anything. But within minutes, the cell opens, and a man comes and grabs me and he calls my name, get me, and I go in front of these detectives. And at that time, the task force was investigating me and some of my friends and all that. So I figured they were trying to ask me questions. I go in there with my head hung, and my head's hung, and I'm just like, kind of just, at that point, just kind of not really wanting to say anything, just really, devastated, I guess you could say, in my mind, mentally, just, tired as well, because I'd been up for 3 days straight. And a guy answers, he says, "Hey, John." And I look up, and I recognize this guy. He looks a little different, but I used to play in bands and stuff, and he used to have long dreadlocks. He had like his nose pierced right here, and tattoos and all that. And he was sitting there across from me, dressed like a detective, and I'm like, oh man, like, what's up? And he's like, I hadn't seen him in years, mind you. This has been, probably 6 years since I've seen the guy. He's like, "What happened, man? What is going on with you?" He's like, "I was laying in my bed, and I hear over the intercom, or whatever, the little system that they have." And because he was a part of the task force as well, and he hears my name, and he says, "God told me to get up and come pray for you right now." And I was like, so he pulled me out of the cell to pray for me. And at that moment, man, I felt this rush of, and what I can only describe as possibly the Holy Spirit, like rushing through me, and my addiction kind of leaving my body. Like I felt renewed and forgiven, and all of those different things all in one moment. And, there's more to the whole story, but that kind of sums up what I'm doing now, because I did tell God, I said, if you do this for me, if you answer me, just let me know you care about me, and let me know you're real and who you are. And the process of him showing me who he was, took a couple years, but he showed me that he did care. He showed me that he forgave me. He showed me all those things. And so my deal was I would serve him forever. I will never stop. I won't do anything else except for that. And so that's where I'm at right now. And I realize that a lot of the things that I'm doing now are what men are supposed to be doing in general anyway. We're supposed to be defenders. We're supposed to be warning people. We're supposed to be helping people. We're supposed to be protecting people. And we've lost our way. Men have lost their way, I believe, and mostly in this world. And I'm not trying to condemn them or come down on them, because we all grew up in this system that taught us to be less than what we're supposed to be.
As you're speaking there, John, I'm reminded of the words of Jesus in Matthew 9, where he says he's questioned by the Pharisees, and the Pharisees ask him, "Well, why does your master sit with tax collectors and sinners?" And he says, he responds by saying, "It's not the healthy that need a doctor, but the sick. And I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners."
Yeah.
And that's really where humanity is in general. It's a story of everyone, and your story of going through jail and being troubled and all of that. He's totally called you out of that. How beautiful.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that are children of God that go through this world, the reason a lot of them have so many problems is because they can't really accept this world for what it is,
Yeah.
They can't really, they just don't see it, and so that's where I was. And I think that's why a lot of us were in that spot to begin with. We just didn't accept the world for what it was.
Yeah, that's understandable. It's really interesting perspective. Okay, so after you felt the Holy Spirit come over you, what happened then? You felt all of this addiction and these spirits leave?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a process. Of course, it took me a couple years to really understand what was going on, because at that point I didn't really know if the Bible was a legitimate source of information about God. I didn't know for sure if that was the God that saved me. I knew that it was. I did know this. I did know that the name Jesus was the name that I called out to. And so I knew that he was involved, but I'd heard so many different versions of Jesus, whether it be the Muslim version of Jesus. I've heard the Gnostic version of Jesus. I'd heard the Christian version of Jesus. I've heard so many versions. And so I didn't know exactly what version. I just knew that that was what it was. Right. So I'm on this journey. My life changed. My whole family, my wife, she didn't really know who I was anymore. I thought we were done for sure, because she just really didn't understand what was going on with me. My own family thought I kind of went crazy, and in a way I did. I was completely like, I shut everything out of my life. TV, all evils of it, all sorts. Like people changed my phone number, like everything about myself. I pretty much just boom. And so nobody really knew what to make of that. And so I'm going through this really by myself for a couple of years, just reading the Bible every day, because in the end, like how I stumbled upon reading the Bible was because I was praying once again, God, I want to serve you, but I don't even know what to do. Like, I have no idea where to go, where to learn about you, where to learn how to do anything. I just don't know anything. Like, I don't even know the history of you. I want to know who you are. And I stumbled upon this video where this guy is talking about these codes that are inscribed in the Bible, and they were called the Torah codes, and you could do equidistant letter sequencing in this thing, which means basically like if you took the first letter and then went 7 more characters, took that letter, 7 more characters, took that letter, by all those different things, or 50 letters or whatever, and it tells something profound, right? You can look at this. It's really interesting if you ever get a chance. Now, there are people that are, saying, oh, I found this in the Torah code and all these different things, but with this style, equidistant letter sequencing is not something you can replicate, right? This is something that has to be almost, whoever wrote this not only was able to tell a ancient story that is exact, but also able to inscribe codes inside of it, which shows they're a higher intelligence than a human being. And this is, mind you, over 66 authors, or 66 books of the Bible, numerous authors over thousands of years, and able to inscribe this into these texts. And so that was enough for me to be like, okay, I've got to read the Bible. I got to see what the heck it actually says. I mean, I've been to Christian school my whole life. I went to church. I even went to seminary, but yet I really never read the entire Bible and actually looked at it without looking at a commentary that some guy wrote, right? I looked at something, some guy wrote about it, and so I had to read that, right? And that's how I always learned things back then. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to read it from the beginning. So I started in Genesis. And then part of the fascination I have with the Nephilim is because when I got to chapter 6, it started talking about those things. I'm like, whoa, hold on. How come I never saw this? As much as I was interested in this subject and the idea that almost every ancient mythology talked about this, how did I never see this right here in the 6th chapter of the Bible? And it like took me down a whole rabbit trail there. But then I continued through it. And it was like an adventure going through it. I started seeing things and understanding the way that the world was. For once, I understood what was about, like at this point, like people are like, why don't you watch the news? I really don't have to. I don't have to. Like, I already know their agenda. I already know what's getting set up. I know what they're doing. So these stories that they tell us about why they're doing it, or what's going on and who's behind this, for me, like, as far as I'm concerned, it's Sesame Street. Puppets telling you we're doing this time. Oh, this person did this. That's all I get out of it. So, anyways,
you're right.
Such a good way to put it.
Totally. Oh wow. Okay. Claudia, do you have a question?
Yeah. So you were in your own space, like reading the Bible all the time. When did your wife and the family get on board and also become, because I'm assuming now everything is fine and you're all aligned ideologically. How long did it take until your wife also found Christ, or did she already have Christ and you were on a different journey?
So she was actually had been going to church before that. She had kind of grown up in a Christian home, but she was also like just what you would call the lukewarm kind of fake Christian, ones that say they're Christian, they go to church, but they do. I mean, she went out and partied. I'd take her and her friends out to party all the time and do all those different things. So it's not like she wasn't like, living a lifestyle that really isn't contrary to what righteous lifestyle was anyway. But so for her, when she saw my transformation, she didn't understand it either, because she wasn't really a believer in the Messiah. She wasn't somebody that truly followed after him. And so it was a hard process, actually. For years, I thought, there's no way we were going to make it. Like, I was just at that point, I was willing to, like, I'm like, whatever. At this point, I don't care right now. I just want to serve God and do what he does. We didn't have kids at that point, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. But then we had children, right? We had our first son. He's 11 now. We had our first son. And then, things were still rocky. Like, I would be celebrating Passover and doing all these things, and she'd be going to work and just kind of not participating in that. And I'm trying to raise my boys up and teach them all these things. And there was, back and forth, and you could tell we weren't getting along, right? There was just this problem. And so we had another boy. And then she was pregnant again. And this time, though, she had a miscarriage.
Oh.
And during the miscarriage, after the miscarriage, it devastated her. It really took her toll. And me, it was sad as well. But obviously, with a mother, there's a different feeling that is associated with that. So she was going through this stuff kind of internally. She felt like alone. And it really caused her to rethink everything. And really, that's what that horrible moment in her life kind of set her motion towards reading the Bible and trying to understand, all the different things, and trying to understand me too, trying to understand what's going on. And so she did. And here we are, we've had 2 more girls since then. And me and her are on the same page, which is really awesome, because that is not something that most people have. It really isn't.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but it really isn't something most people have. And we can only thank God for that, because there was nothing I could say that would be like, hey, this is this. She didn't want to listen to what I had to say. Like, I was the last person. But she would listen to somebody else maybe, or she would do this or that. But I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for that. To answer your question, that's how it all kind of took place. There was a lot of rocky moments.
So oddly, the miscarriage sort of assisted her faith journey.
Yeah, it broke her down a lot, and sometimes, unfortunately, just like I had to be broken down, sometimes we have to be broken down to realize that life's not everything we think it is. Some people are charmed in life. They never have to go through anything horrible or bad in their life. And really, I know people that have never lost anybody in their family still. They've got moms and dads that are 70, grandma and grandpas that are 90 something years old, like they've got, nobody had any cancer or anything in their lives. And so they don't look to God for help, right? They're not crying out to God because something bad's happened to them. They're not crying out to God because they realize their life is a wreck and they need him. They're not crying out. But when something bad, because my wife was kind of like that too. She's got a great family she grew up in, just like everything, they've had a great life, right? And so she never really had any of those things going on. So when this happened to her, it was a shocking moment for her. It was something that made her realize that this life is very real, is very short, and we don't always have the time that we think that we have.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Adversity is often our greatest teacher.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to go into that dark place in order for us to understand why we need Jesus in our lives, why we need God. Because without that experience, there can be no redemption, without knowledge of your brokenness as a human being.
I agree.
There is no need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
and so would you like to perhaps tell us a bit more about your experience in terms of researching the Nephilim, mythology? What happened there? Like when you discovered all of this information, where did it take you? What are you doing with this information?
Yeah. Well,
share a bit on that.
Lauren, you got the domino rolling, not me. Ooh.
Yeah, I like it. Lauren's getting into it. So I think for me, the reason that I was so intriguing to me, obviously, was my interest in that. But through searching through that, and through the time that it took me to kind of get into really understanding why it is even relevant, other than just kind of nerding out on it. which is what a lot of people do. I mean, including myself, definitely for years. And but there's significance to the times we're in with that scenario, because what happened in Genesis 6 is a genetic manipulation that took place. They came and they genetically manipulated man and beast. The Bible talks about them sinning against man and beast, and so does the book of Enoch. They sinned against man and beast. And also you see that in every mythology. You have hybrid animals, you have hybrid men. And so the genetic manipulation of mankind, those made in the image of the one true God, which we are the made in the image. The angels aren't made in the image of God. They're made in different images. Some of them are serpent-like, dragon-like. Some of them are different. They're all different. We are the ones, the beings made in the image of God. And also the animals were created by God. And he said it was good. He said, it's good. I rest, right? I rest. This is good. Except the problem is these entities came and they decided that they weren't happy with the way things were. In fact, they wanted to interbreed, and they wanted to have children that were giant, mighty men. The Bible calls them mighty men of renown. They interjected, and the book of Enoch talks about this, right? It talks about the judgment that incurred with them. And then the book of Jude mentions it as well. It tells us about judgment that took place in the book of, according to Enoch, as the Bible actually talks about Enoch. It says Enoch prophesied saying, right? The only place that you find Enoch prophesying is in the book of Enoch, the first book of Enoch. And it actually quotes exactly what the book of Jude was saying. So I realized this about the book of Enoch because I've gone through it. I've read it probably over several hundred times, because we're going through and commentating on the entire book line by line. It lines up with scripture 100%. And on top of that, it's written for this generation. It's said a remote generation, an end times generation, not just the generation of the time. And weirdly enough, it's become very popular in this final generation. It started to bring forth, and people are realizing it's a legitimate source of the book of Enoch, because it was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls almost exactly the way we found it from the Ethiopian text. So it was preserved through the Ethiopians, thankfully, and also preserved through the Dead Sea Scrolls, where they found them in those caves. And so knowing that at the time of Jesus, at least, they used these documents, these Essenes used these documents as part of history, as part of their religion and stuff. So we know it was actually used back then. And so that brings relevance. But when you read the book of Enoch, and I'm not sure if you have yet, Lauren, it's not that long, but if you haven't, I would say read it. And I'm telling you this, after I read it, the spiritual blinders just lifted off. In fact, I started encountering like demonic experiences, not with me, but with other people around me. Demons started like exposing themselves to me in a way that I was like,
you're advancing with God is when you come under that attack.
Yeah, because they start realizing like this guy sees what's going on. He sees through the matrix. He sees through this.
And then you have influence on other people with that information. They don't like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, sorry, Claudia.
No, you go. I'll go after you.
Ask a question that you know about the genetic manipulation that you mentioned in Genesis chapter 6. Can you explain I guess the parallel to the time that we're in now, and why this is significant to modern day life?
Yes. I'm so glad you said that, because I meant to say that and I got kind of going off on a tangent, but I'm so glad you asked that.
It's fun to go on tangents.
yeah, I do that sometimes. And but yeah, so the reason it's important is because Jesus said this. He said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man, right? So what was going on in the days of Noah? The Bible tells us that Noah was a righteous in his generations. You look at the word generations in Hebrew, it means his genealogy. It means he was righteous in his genealogy. His family had not been manipulated through this entire thing. So this is the reason God chose Noah to continue the human race after the flood. What we have going on right now is a genetic manipulation on a mass scale. I believe that if it's possible, they've already genetically manipulated possibly 1/3 of the population of the earth, if not more. They've genetically manipulated that many. And a lot of people did it willingly. and you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention it because I don't want you guys to get banned anywhere or anything like that. But it's possible that that's what happened. Now, I think that there is forgiveness. I think that the blood of the Lamb, the blood of Jesus can actually cleanse people and heal people. It healed me of drug addiction because, I mean, even when you're doing drugs, there's actually, you know, your body changes, your genetics change as you do evil things. That's why occultists and people that study the craft, that are into the dark side of things, they do these rituals because they believe it truly changes their DNA into something else, into something stronger. They believe that that's how Nimrod gained his strength in Babylon, right? Is through these rituals. I do as well, and it does change you, right?
That change that comes over people when they start getting involved in the occult.
Yes, yeah, there is, and it's the epigenetics. So, like in epigenetics, basically everything we do is being recorded in our epigenetics, and it's like a recorder throughout our whole life. And so, if I choose to, let's say, drink water instead of soda, that's sending something to my epigenetics. And it's changing that. And then the epigenetics gets passed on to the children. And so this is what we're talking about, generational curses. Some of these things that we've changed in our DNA have been passed along to children. That's why you have alcoholism in some families really, really strong. It's really hard. And so this continues on the line until we have that blood covering of Jesus, because he can change us. Like the Bible said, he separates our soul from our spirit. He's able to divide that so that we can continue on eternally throughout this. But a lot of people haven't had that division. They have a really fleshly body and mind, and they've never been able to think in a spiritual terms. Their body only reacts to their flesh like an animal almost, right? And so I think that's what's going on with a lot of people. They're almost more animal than human at this point. And with the help of some of these technologies that have come along, I think it's going to get worse. But I also think that there is the Bible hints at the idea, and it even says the idea in several prophecies, that this will happen again. This big change that took place in Genesis 6, and I don't know how we're going to see it. I don't know what it'll look like. I know that I've already seen hybrid animals being produced. I've already seen hybrid plants being produced. GMOs are all hybridization. So to think that they're not doing this with humans or with people behind closed doors is kind of foolish, because you know that they've been doing things 20 years before they even tell us about it. So we know that they're doing these things. There's black op budgets where people can do pretty much whatever they want. I mean, they got billions of dollars at their discretion that they don't even have to account for to do these things. So that's why I think it's important to learn about, because if you learn about history, you know, you can kind of at least prevent yourself from falling prey to it. Because look, people are going to be deceived. There's going to be Christians that have no idea about this genetic manipulation. They think it's a good thing. They're going to see this. And they're like, man, I don't have to worry about diabetes anymore. I can change my genetics here, and I can live forever. I can live longer. I can be taller. My children can be this. I can have designer children. All of these things that people are going to probably choose for themselves are going to separate them from being possibly human and being able to be redeemed, because God, he came for the humans, right? He came for those created in the image of God, not those created in the image of half bird, half man, half whatever. He created us in his image. So I believe they're trying to do that in order so there's nobody can be saved. Like, they don't want anybody saved, I think.
I think that's true. But in Christianity at large, there's also Christians that mock us.
Yes.
I put a video up yesterday, just a little 1-minute ditty where I'm saying why those of us who are not that why it's better to date among that. And so there's Christians going, oh, that's just stupid, like you shouldn't be discriminating. I'm like, it's not about discrimination. It's about the fact that it's about fortitude and strength of character and knowing that that person has honor. I was basing it more on my argument more on a character flaw as a character positive, as to be people who are able to withstand tyranny and that kind of thing. And even Christians don't get it. Christians in our own community don't understand, and that's a huge issue to me. It pisses me off seeing so many churches bend at the knee to the government. This is why Lauren and I joined our own little outside isolated outcast church, because we didn't want to be a part of that whole deal.
Yeah, no, you're so right. I mean, you should make very firm decisions on who you date or who you marry. That should be, look, a bad husband, for you ladies out there, will destroy your life. It'll literally destroy your life. Men out there, a bad wife will destroy your life. On the other hand, a good husband, a good wife will only lift you up. You two become one, and you guys become strong, right? You become strong together because you guys operate. One of you operates this way, one of you operates this way. And look, if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. She is the opposite of me. She can do things that I can't do, right? And I can do things she can't do. And so this makes it a good operation, which that's who you should be looking for. Be very picky. Yeah, don't just date somebody. Who cares if they don't like it or not? You know what? Forget it. Who cares? You make yourself valuable when you really look at people for who they are and be very, very picky in who you choose. Be valuable. Women who are, dating just anybody and everybody, they're not valuable to men. They're not valuable at all. In fact, you just think of them as just, you can get that every day. It's like a buffet. You can go to McDonald's every day. Who cares about that girl? You don't need that girl. You want the girl that you can't get, right? You want the girl that is actually worth getting. But girls that just throw themselves around everywhere, they are thought of by real men as no value to that, right? Like, and I'm not trying to belittle anybody, and I don't, and I'm married, so it doesn't really matter. But if I wasn't married and I was walking around in the dating world and I knew that this girl was a floozy or she's out there doing whatever, like I don't want nothing to do with her. I don't care how beautiful she is, because inside I can see through that facade. I can see that spirit that'll cause me pain and grief and horrifying experiences. Because look, I mean, this is our body, but we're spiritual beings, right?
So our body's our temple.
Yes. True. I mean, you have to be attracted to somebody. Obviously you can't, it's not like you're going to go to some troll and be like, oh, he's beautiful. I get that. But I think that like, but at the same motion, in the same, I guess, mindset, you have to be attracted to them, but they also have to be like, what you would like to spend the rest of your life with, because we do make an oath, right? When we marry people, and dating is, why date if you're not going to get married to eventually, right? You're looking for somebody that you can be compatible with, that can carry your burdens and you can carry their burdens, and you guys can make it through this life together. And obviously the world wants to destroy marriage, good marriages. It wants to destroy them so bad because they know if they can destroy the family, they can destroy everything. And
that's true. I wanted to sort of ask you a question, but I didn't get the opportunity earlier about Enoch, the book of Enoch, because a lot of Christians would argue, and this is Bible college Christians, this isn't like self-studied Christians, these are Christians that go to Bible college, which in and of itself is worth critiquing a little bit. But anyway, they would argue that the book of Enoch isn't an accurate book. It's not canon. You can't claim it. But I have always argued that it was originally in the Bible, but then it was pulled out sometime later. Is that true, what I say, or is that inaccurate? I figure you might know the answer to that question.
There are some canons that have it as a part of their canon, right? Of course, we go by the Roman Christian canon, 66 books. But there's the Ethiopian canon. There's other canons out there that do have it as part of their canon. So I don't look at myself as somebody that's able to say, this is scripture, everything about it scripture. I mean, scripture just means ancient text anyway. So it's an ancient text. It has value. It lines up with the Bible, and it tells us a story. And I think it's a legitimate book from Enoch. I mean, people can say whatever they want about it, but look, this book,
there are copies, there are fakes as well that are out there to deceive as well.
But not only that, I reckon the consistency of where we find the accounts of Nephilim, not just in the book of Enoch, but in archaeology, portrayed in different cultures around the world. There's a level of consistency that it's like an imprint in our history, so to speak, on this information that we can't just ignore. I think that there is validity.
There's an Aboriginal Australian that I have her phone number, and I texted her a couple of years ago, and I asked her a question about giants. I said, is there any giants in like Aboriginal folklore? And she said that there was a giant spoken of in Aboriginal folklore where it was a female giant, which would surprise me because you rarely hear of female giants. But anyway, this female giant ate humans. And I'm like, most of the giants are known as cannibals, so that's not surprising. And anyway, so I found that's an ancient Aboriginals are perceived to be next to the Jewish people, one of the longest ethnic groups and traditional people on earth. And so to hear that, I feel like that's a corroboration of the Bible, and that's why the Catholic Church and the Smithsonian and all these museums hide this information, because it does actually corroborate and back up biblical fact.
Yeah, because I mean, if all this was out, evolution would never be able to be taught in school. It would never, because people would be like, well, what are all these freaking giants everywhere? What is going on here? Like, this doesn't make sense in your record. But yeah, they have to cover it up. They have no choice. Just like, and I don't know where you guys are at on this, but I totally believe that NASA is a deception organization.
And
now
they lie to us. Easily.
Yeah, they are liars. I mean, the word NASA means beguiled. In Genesis 6, where it says the serpent beguiled Eve, that word beguiled is NASA. And if you look on the logo, it's got the tongue, right? It's got the serpent tongue on it, and it's so deceptive. And we know that ancient cosmology, nobody believed what we believe now. Now they'll tell you that everybody believed that, but you look at every single depiction of the Earth.
Are we talking about heliocentric model versus geocentric model?
We're talking about flat Earth here, right? We're talking about the Earth being flat like this and having ice stationary around it, and it has a dome that's over the top of it.
Yeah.
So
just
that's
like
what I'm
the Bible
talking about.
says.
Yes. It's just like the Bible says, exactly. That's the reason I even started believing it. But now I start to see all the evidence that it's like, man, we've probably been lied to about this stuff, like everything else. Now, would I bet my life on it? No, I wouldn't, because I don't know. Maybe I'm misinterpreting what the Bible says about it, but I don't know. But from what I can gather, just from the information that my measly little mind can come up with, I don't think we're living on a planet that's spinning through space, and I don't think we evolved from monkeys. I just don't think that that's what happened. I think history tells a different story.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. Do you think that dinosaurs were created by the genetic mixing of the time? Because I also sometimes think about mermaids and centaurs and minotaurs and the half man, half beast thing, and I wonder often whether that was the fallen angels, the Watchers, doing crap that they shouldn't have been doing, and that there was a time, like there's a reason that Xena and Hercules and these shows, and like these are creatures that might have existed once upon a time. But even in the Bible, they have lion men, and they do mention goat people. Would you say that is a corruption of genetics done by the fallen ones?
I think so, personally. That's why we don't see any still walking around the earth. I think that God told Noah, probably don't bring those big crazy beasts on the ark with you, right? They're evil and crazy. So I think I think so for sure. I don't think God
maybe they were
created
evil.
Yeah, a bunch of giant evil monsters who go around killing everybody. Personally, but maybe he did. I don't know. What do I know? But I do know this too, back before the flood, when you look at the records of how long humans lived, they lived way longer. I mean, 10 times longer than we do.
Like 900 years.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
Go, Laura.
What about the cherubim? Because
that's another version of angel. That's just another subsect of celestial creatures.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff though about the cherubim. So with cosmology, like, and I don't know what you were getting at exactly. I'm sorry, I didn't hear. But the cherubs, they also are a creature, but they also represent something, which is really interesting. So I know that you guys are familiar with the zodiac. Well, in the Hebrew, it's called the wow, I can't. It's okay. In the Hebrew, there's a name for it as well, the zodiac, but it's called like I want to say the Mazzaroth.
Like the Kabbalah?
Mazzaroth. It's the Mazzaroth. In the Hebrew, it's called the Mazzaroth. And each sign is a representation of the tribes of Israel. The animals are the same as on the zodiac, right? So each one of them represents a tribe. Now, when you look at the cardinal points of the zodiac, which would be east, west, north, south, there are animals that are associated with those cardinal points of the zodiac. The heads of the cherubs actually are the same heads of the cardinal points of the zodiac. Now, if you look at what he's describing there, I believe he's describing a entity that can literally travel through time. This thing it's got eyes. Nobody knows where it goes, where it goes, how it goes, but this thing takes him and shows him something. It shows him something in the future, right? This is something to do with time. This is an entity that has to do with time for sure. If you look at the description of it, look at the Mazzaroth, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. They're described twice, exactly the same in the book of Ezekiel. The wheels within the wheels, and then the four faces. They do all, I believe that they're actual entities that look like that, but I also believe that we're shown what they are through the representation of the Mazzaroth.
Wow. Would that so, because the cherubim also were when Adam and Eve were discarded from the Garden of Eden, from paradise, they guarded the garden with the sword. Now, I don't know what happened to them or to that sword during the flood. I'm not sure where it is, but the cherubim, God sent specifically cherubim. He didn't send angels or an archangel. He sent cherubim. So
and
they have a role.
There's some that surround his throne as well. It's crying holy, holy, holy. It talks about them there. They surround his throne and do that. They have a lot of roles for sure. I don't know, there's so many different
Revelation.
Are they? They mentioned in Revelation? Okay.
Well, and they have different faces. So they've got heads. The lion, the ox, the eagle, and the man.
Yeah, so the man is representative of the water, or of the water bearer. So, and then you have the ox, which is the bull, same thing. But if you look at them and you look at just actually go to, I don't know if you have a Strong's definition for the King James Version, but look at the Strong's definition of that and see what it represents, because the face of a man represents the southern point of the Mazzaroth. The ox and the bull sometimes is represented as a unicorn as well, through that. And then they have and then, so just if you look at them, I actually did a show all about that one time, and so I don't have any notes in front of me. I wish I could tell you way more about it, because there's like a whole bunch.
Oh, that's all right. We'll come on your show and we'll discuss
that would be
more.
awesome. Yeah.
But I remember actually I was in your audience one time, and I remember your audience was very strong toward me, because I made a comment that stars are not angels, and they got very, very frustrated with me, saying, stars are.
I don't remember that.
Oh, that's okay. It wasn't like a big deal. It wasn't something that like I dreamt all night and I was like crying about it. But
I've been waiting for this moment.
But essentially, according to certain texts, stars are seen as celestial beings. I just wanted to know whether you thought that too, or whether you thought that. I know that stars sing. I know that they have their own song. I know that, but I don't consider them sentient. Yeah, it's odd. Some Christians think that. I don't think I do, but I just wanted to get Jon's perspective.
So to me, like, I believe that stars and angels often are interchangeable in the Bible, but
really, okay.
Well, they are like, language, going back to the original language speaking, right? Sometimes they're represented, or sometimes in the story, they're representing angels. But I do believe also, like, so in the book of Enoch, it talks about the big time on cosmology. If you haven't read the book of Enoch, check it out with the cosmology. The whole thing,
I've listened to it. I haven't.
It talks about the gates of the sun, how the sun goes across the earth, the gates that it goes through. It talks about different angels moving these bodies through the air, almost like you'd picture Star Wars type stuff, like all of this going on, and that they transgress their order at one point. And the book of Enoch says they will transgress their order, and nobody will understand the times because they transgress their order. And interestingly enough, that's exactly what's going on now, because how many times have you heard people saying, we're at the end of the new age. The new age is now. It's the age of Aquarius. Now is the age. And then there's people like, no, it's not here yet. And you know what? I don't know if you guys know what that means, but the age is represented on the Mazzaroth. the sun will rise in a certain house, right? So it's rising in a house, and then when the age shifts, which is what we believe happened in the flood, which is what we believe happened at the very beginning, and also in the Tower of Babel, this shift that took place where the sun rises in a different house, causing cataclysms that happen every age all over the earth. And so the Bible talks about the age, right? It talks about at the end of the age over and over again, you know, at the end of the millennium, the end of the age, end of this time period. And at that time, everybody understood what an age was. It was a certain number of years. And I'm not exactly, I can't remember, but if you multiply 6 times 6 times, or 6 times 600, or 600 times 66 times 6, you'll get the amount of years of an age. That's how long an age was always considered. So 666, the calculation of that also refers to a time period, how long of a time period there is. But everybody believed it was that long. But so recently things have changed, right? Things have shifted. The stars have transgressed their order. People actually thought the New Age was coming a long time ago. One of the chapels built by the Templars was built because they believed that the age was coming, and they wanted to be right under the alignment for the sun to hit them at the certain time. And this is Rosslyn Chapel, right? They built it with that expectation, but that was hundreds of years ago, and we're past now. So nobody knows the time. When the Bible says nobody's going to know the day or the hour, at the end of the day, they're not going to know. They're literally not going to know. We should know, because ultimately it's always been a certain amount of years of cycle, but because of something that happened with the transgression of the stars, we don't really understand where we're at in time right now. At least that's what I believe, and from what I've studied, that's what I can gather.
No, that makes sense. But like a lot of people claim that they know. A lot of people on YouTube, the 1 minute reels, are like, oh, you know, the river Euphrates is drying up, not realizing that it's dried up before.
It's never dry. I made that video, and I made it.
I commented.
Listen though, like the river Euphrates has never dried up all the way. It's
okay, that's fair.
It is right now.
That's fair. But you didn't say that. You didn't respond to my comment. You just liked it.
I know I didn't. I don't respond to comments 99% of the time.
Oh, that's fine.
I get so many crazy ones. Like, I mean, literally just so crazy stuff sometimes that I'm like, I don't even look at comments, because I don't care what people are saying about it. I just like, I'm just like putting stuff out. So it's like, if you want to like bash me down, or if you are not saying you, but in general, people want to bash me down, or people want to do anything like that, I legitimately don't care, because I'm just you know, trying to pass information. Now, the thing that would intrigue me the most about that, the Euphrates River, obviously it's dried up to the point it's at right now, but not for a long time. But the scientists are saying that it's going to be completely dried up, possibly within the next 10 to 20 years, which to me, if that's possible, if it does completely dry up, that is interesting, considering the times we're in too, because not only do we have world war, brinks of world war going on around Turkey, Iran, Iraq, all of the areas around that are bickering, fighting. We have Russia, Ukraine, we have all of these things. So when you take all of that stuff into context and you see what's happening on the Euphrates, and they're starting to find things that they've never seen before, well, that at least we've not had record of people seeing before. It's something to take into account, at least to get people looking at it, because, and you're right, like, it's not completely dried up. That prophecy's not been 100% fulfilled yet. But at least it's worth people looking at, because it might be like, there might literally be something taking place, because the seal in Revelation is associated with that river drying up. The sixth vial that's poured in by the angel, the river dries up. 4 angels that have been chained underneath the Euphrates, or in the Euphrates, rise up.
And they kill a third of humanity, right? And then they find some women and they have sex with them, and then there are more giants again.
No, I don't know exactly how it all takes place, but I know that at this point, when that happens, this is close to the end. We're talking about Armageddon, the battle that the entire world. We're not talking, like all that stuff's probably going on right now, like the angels, the genetically manipulation. That's probably literally going on right now. Like we just don't even know really how it's going on. I mean, we have deep underground military bunkers all over the United States, all over the world. I'm sure that, who knows? I mean, children go missing, right? 40,000, 50,000 children a year are trafficked and go missing. Nobody knows where they're at. So there's hidden things, and there's people that I respect that have actually been killed. You can read their books that have exposed these things, right? One of them being I can't think of the guy's name right now. I've talked about him. By the end of the show, I'll remember his name, but He worked in these things. He was a high level security person, and for sure he was. They've actually looked at his credentials. His name was Phil Snyder. He was found just body looked like somebody had taken a baseball bat to a watermelon, right? And then I think they pronounced it a suicide. But this guy opened his mouth about these bunkers and about these beings that were hiding in these bunkers. And this is the kind of stuff that's going on. But like I said, like that will be, if that happens, if this is what that is, we're talking about World War III. We're talking about Armageddon, one of the worst, bloodiest battles that we've ever seen in the world. And I don't know if you guys have been following like King Charles and who he is and his lineage and how, and like a lot of people don't realize how important King Charles is, and how, not important, but how dominant this man is. I mean, he's in charge of the WEF. So the WEF is just a puppet organization for him. The United Nations.
Sesame Street.
He owns almost 1/3 of the landmass of the world, including Australia. Has more wealth than the Rothschilds even can think about having, not only in gold, but in land. I mean, if he were to say, I'm pooling my resources, the Rothschilds are piss ants compared to King Charles. And on top of that, his lineage, if you look at his heraldry, he alone, out of all the kings that we've ever had, he can claim throne to Greece, he can claim throne to Rome,
yes,
throne to Germany, he can claim throne to Russia because of the Romanov bloodline in him. He can claim throne to all of it, to Israel as well. When they are coronated, they are the king of Israel. They are quoted as being the king of Israel or queen of Israel. That is part of their coronation. So he has everything to more than most people want to give him credit for, but also on his heraldry. This is really interesting to me, but there's the red dragon. You won't find that on the queen's heraldry, but the red dragon spoken of in Revelation. You also have the 3 feathers, which represent the dark prince. You have the Bible talks about the horn and the horse, the 4th horseman, who has eyes like a man, and this unicorn that they have that's chained by the restrainer, right? What is called in heraldry, that chain is called a restrainer. It has 1 horn, but if you look at his eyes, I don't know if you guys are familiar with horses, but you don't see the white.
Oh shit, Lauren owns a horse, so go for it. Explain.
So look, the eyes, if you look at the heraldry, the eyes, does a horse's eyes look like that? Are you looking at it right now, Lauren?
At a horse?
The heraldry of King Charles. Just type in King Charles heraldry. His heraldic symbol. If you look at the white horse, it has the eyes of a man. The Bible describes this horse having the eyes of a man.
So do you believe that the Queen of England, who every year for her Christmas message mentioned Christ and how much solace she found in Jesus, do you believe that she was secretly evil?
I really don't know. I don't want to judge her one way or the other. I just know because I have no idea. But
some people have said that
she was passive.
She was
for a long time. But King Charles doesn't plan on being passive. He came out with a speech saying that he's going to lead the world in the green agenda. On his coronation thing, he had the green god right in the middle of it. He, like I said, he leads the WEF. Everybody's like, oh, the WEF, Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab's nothing compared to Charles. He leads that. Like, he's in charge.
I actually thought it was the other way around. I thought that Prince Charles was like a muppet and that there was someone puppeteering him.
That's the media. That's the media. What they've been leading you to believe about him.
But no, it's not the media. The media doesn't say that. Conservatives say that.
No, well, whoever says it,
it's a part of the media.
It's not the mainstream media. It's a facade because the guy is the head of the garter now, which means he's the witch king of witch kings. Okay, so to give you a perspective on the Knights of the Garter, before World War II, the Emperor of Japan was under the Knights of the Garter, still under league with Prince Charles at the time. He's been the witch king of witch kings. And the Garter, if you look at the Garter and you look at the history behind where the Garter, it actually came from a witch, and they confiscated it, uses it for its power. And he's also the leader of the Freemasons now. The king is considered the head of the Freemason Lodge worldwide. So not only he controls the lodge, he controls the World Economic Forum, he controls the money flow system. He's in charge. He's in charge of almost 1/3 of the land population of the world, and he has every bit of ambition to use that power. He's not like the queen. The queen never had any ambition to use that power. She never talked about it, never did anything. He has every bit of it, and he's like coming full force. And if you have listened to anything he's said over the past few days, he's made that pretty clear. Like he's coming, and he has no problem taking control. And which I think
his son would be better off being king. Sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah.
Did you look up what John asked you to look up?
I have. I can. So, am I looking at an emblem?
so. You're looking at an emblem. It's got a white horse on one side. It's got a lion. A lion. Okay, so the thing in context, we're talking about this vision of this beast, this first beast that rises out of the water. It says that it has the head of a lion, a body of a leopard, and the feet of the bear. Now, if you look at that lion, it doesn't look like a normal lion, right? It has a head of a lion. It has body of a thin lion, like a leopard, which is what leopards used to look like, and it has the feet of what looked like a bear, right? And then you have this unicorn on one side, which has one horn, which is interesting because it represents, like, I believe it represents that one horn that it talks about, the horn that rises up during the 10 kings. During the 10 kings, and there you can see the 10 kings represented on the symbolism as well. Also, if you look up the three-feathered symbolism, that means that's actually represents the dark prince, the three-feather symbolism. And a lot of what people don't know about King Charles now is he's the man's man. Like, the guy was an athlete. He was a warrior. He's not like people like, oh, he's an old man. But dude, like, that guy, he was a man. He was literally somebody that nobody understands who he is. Like, people only know who he is based off their idea, or they see him as this crumbly old man, but like, that's not him. He's a powerful man and has been for a very, very long time. Like, actually since the 1960s, he's been leader of almost all of these organizations, been able to sit in the background and let all of these things happen, never getting blamed, always thought of as the crickety old man. But he's getting ready to come out with a new persona. You guys are going to see it because in the Bible it talks about Satan.
Now.
Yeah, it talks about Satan.
The Antichrist, John?
I think it's possible. Like, I think that if there's a contender right now, I think most definitely in his name actually does equal 666. His gematria equals 666. He has the symbolism, which I believe that if you're going to have the numbers that represent it, it has to be done correctly first, not some, let's change the language a little bit, let's manipulate these letters, let's do this. It has to be the real name.
Argument.
It has to be the real name, and it has to have the symbolism. Like, and he has the symbolism, and he has that name. Now, have there been other people in history that may have had that?
Nero.
Possibly Nero, yes. But there's been many, I believe, Antichrist type figures that have come. Attila the Hun being another one. People like that. So,
were you going to say something, Lauren?
Yes, I was going to say on the subject of the Antichrist, though. In the word at the end in Revelation, it talks about how, this leader will sit in the third temple, and proclaim himself as God.
Yeah.
So I kind of, I wonder whether he has any kind of right to be there and to actually fulfill this position, because it would only be a Jewish person who would be able to really sit in the temple. And that's where I kind of wonder, is it King Charles? Is it Jared Kushner? Who is it?
John said a moment ago that he's king of Israel now because...
Yeah. Well, he's also, King Charles is a descendant of King David. For sure. He has their genealogy. Yeah, he is a descendant.
Wow.
And he's a descendant of Muhammad. He's a descendant of some of the pharaohs. He's the descendant of all the kingly lineages. There's no other kingly lineage in the world that has the qualities of generations that he has. Nobody. Like, he has literal, like, if he wanted to, he has power over all the nations because his bloodline is superior to all of them, because all kingly lineages are represented within his bloodline, which his mother didn't have that. His mother didn't have the Romanov bloodline in him. He does.
Because of his father. Yeah. She married her cousin. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, also the 2030 agenda, right? So if he is the Antichrist and he just got coronated and there's a 7-year tribulation, what is 7 years from now?
2020, 2030.
2030, right?
Oh,
He has the
okay.
2030 agenda. And so in the Bible, it talks, and so if he is the Antichrist, let's just entertain it for a second. If he is
Sure.
the Antichrist and he is the first beast, which is the first beast that comes up out of the water, and then in Revelation, right after that, it talks about the second beast coming out of the earth.
The false
So
prophet is the
he
second
comes out of the
beast.
water. He receives a deadly wound. The deadly wound was healed. The next beast that comes out of the earth causes everyone to worship the first beast and to worship his image. Now, this is crazy. If you look up the image of Prince Charles that he has created, it's him with angelic wings. It is going to be 10 cubits, which is exactly the height of the image that was in the temple at the time of the Maccabees, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Maccabees and the
I'm not
time
familiar.
period that where they took over the temple. They put a statue of Zeus. They were telling people they had to worship it or die or whatever. And they called it in Daniel, and it was called the abomination of desolation in the book of Maccabees.
Yeah.
Daniel talks about the abomination of desolation. His statue even proclaims him as the savior of the world. If you look at his statue, and one of these times we'll actually, you know what? If you really wanted to get into the subject, a man who has done so much study on this, there's a book, and it's expensive, but it's called Antichrist and a Cup of Tea by Tim Cohen. I believe his name's Tim Cohen. It's like $50 on his website. And if you go on Amazon, it's like $300. But if you want to find more information about what I'm telling you, like this guy's done way more research than I have. I only know a few things about it. And from what I know, I'm already kind of like thinking, yeah, this guy might actually be the Antichrist. So if you do want to learn more about that, but I could be wrong. It could be any number of people. I've always said, like, I don't know for sure that we're in that time. It might be 100 years from now. Maybe it all just points to that, and maybe things shift and everything happens. I don't really know. I can't claim to know all that, but I do know that if we're in the time period, he's the number one contender as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's all right. It'll be fine. We have Christ.
Yeah.
It's all good. The solution is easy.
The Temple Institute is well and truly established in Israel now. Like the third temple is being built.
Yeah.
So I really believe we are in those times, and certainly the way things are accelerating right now with, COVID was one thing. Now it's a transgender infiltration.
Oh, for God's sake. I know. It's the most frustrating thing on earth.
There's that going on. And I really see like what you're saying, John, about this creation of a new man is really starting to happen. And I don't know if you've actually, what I've been wanting to kind of ask you about is, have you read up on the World Economic Forum, the Fourth Industrial Revolution segment, where they talk about the vision for people, which is to integrate the physical, biological, technological, and I think spiritual realms all into one. They talk about this openly on their website. And I tend to go on.
They don't hide it. That's what's funny.
For the past couple of years, but people don't seem to be alarmed by this.
Yeah, and so what you're saying there is really important to understand, that there's a possibility that we talk about a temple, right? The Bible also says your body's the temple of the Holy Ghost, right? So in the book of Revelation, the second beast gives life to the image of the beast, and he sits himself in the temple, showing himself that he is God. Now, what does that even mean? I don't know for sure, but let's go along the lines instead of the third temple and being in Israel, our bodies are the temple. Let's go along those lines for a minute. Now, being able to integrate an image and having life, it sounds a lot like technology we're starting to see now with robotics and AI, right? We're giving an image life. Now, if this image were able to literally impose itself upon mankind and women and men into their brain through a microchip or anything like that, would that not be sitting themselves in the temple, showing themselves that they're God? Like I'm in everybody's mind. Obviously, I am God, right? This is kind of showing So there's a possibility that it's that too. I like to entertain the possibilities because we don't know exactly what it looks like. But I would say that there's real danger in trying to change your body to link up with robotics. In the book of Daniel, where it talks about the statue, it has 10 toes, which is interesting and has a lot of symbolism dealing with Charles as well, with the 10 crowns and all of the different stuff. But
that
it has
emblem
10
is
toes.
really disturbing, really.
Yes.
Thank you for pointing that out to us, because I hadn't seen that before, and that is really quite interesting.
Yes.
I was going to also mention that many, many years ago,
I think we're going to have to get you back, Jon, for a part 2.
There's so much to talk about here.
I know there's like I don't think we're going to get on masculinity. That can be its own subject at another time. Sorry, keep going, Lo.
But many, many years ago, this is before COVID even was a thing. I was watching on Facebook. You know how sometimes like I subscribe to certain news channels because I'm interested about the kind of nonsense they put up every now and then. But this segment on microchips. This is like, I'm talking, how many years ago was this? Possibly 2016 or 17. Yeah. They had a segment on microchips, and then they had this guy. It was literally a microsecond it was one frame in the video where he's scanning his wrist up against like a little system thing on the wall. And I paused the video at that very moment because I noticed he had a tattoo on his wrist, and I was wondering what it said. And when I paused it, I got chills all over my body when I read what was on his wrist. It had the Hebrew 𝘋𝘰𝘯'𝘵 lettering on his wrist.
Wow.
Which is the holiest name for God, by the way. So
okay, thanks. Oh wow.
Yeah, it was really, really alarming.
Wow.
Firstly, that's against Jewish law. People who
are not supposed to tattoo
would not get a tattoo of God's holiest name or any tattoo on their body. And secondly, I want to know why that was like focused.
It was probably an intentional blasphemy.
It was, but it was like a focus moment in Australia. So this is an Australian news channel.
It was an Australian video. Okay.
It was 9 News.
I wasn't sure. Okay. It was 9 News.
9 News.
See, they don't hide things from us. They show us, but they have a veil over it. So they're tricky. They're still deceived. Don't be deceived. That's the name of our podcast. Oh my gosh, freaky.
Yeah, so that happened all those years ago. Okay. And I was sending the alarm bells off to people going, this is something you need to pay attention to. What is about to happen in our world? Based on this information. And people were like, oh, it's just a coincidence. It's all, I wouldn't worry about it. But now this is literally, you can see where the technology is going now. You can see the intention, motivation to become God. It's literally like saying, I am God.
Yes.
I am God of myself.
But we are. That's what we're told. That's the religion of today, is selfism. We are told that we are God.
That's what serpent.
That's legit what we're taught. Sorry, go ahead, Jon.
I said that's what the serpent told Eve, right?
Yeah.
You can become like God. You don't need, like, God's trying to hold you down. Like he didn't really say that, and so that, for sure, technologies are the way that we're going to accomplish that. At least that's what they're saying, right? So it's a matter of like keeping your flesh alive versus the spirit. A lot of people don't really believe, probably, I guess they maybe they think they do. They think they're eternal beings, but ultimately you can see, because of people's such desire to save their flesh, do they really believe that they're eternal? I mean, ultimately, if you believe that you're eternal, why would you even be scared to even die? Why wouldn't you live a bold life and push through and do everything that you can do to do what's right while you're here? Because I really believe we're here for a reason. I really do believe that. I believe God put us on a mission here. We don't even know what it is, right? Sometimes, because we're here, we come here, we're babies. We learn things as we go through. But we're on a mission, and if we get caught up with trying to be like the world or trying to live forever in the flesh or doing any of these things, we'll probably never accomplish actually what we're sent here to do. Unfortunately, it's all distractions, and it won't work ultimately. It won't work. What I was getting to earlier with the 10 toes and the statue, it says that they shall mingle their seeds with the seeds of men, but it won't cleave, right? And I believe, and it's talking about iron mixed with miry clay. So like ultimately, what are we? We're clay. What is iron, right? It represents machinery type, industrial type thing. This industrial revolution. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. Do you feel, John, that, okay, so this is a little off topic, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. I don't mean to go down a rabbit hole, but do you believe that there are people out there who are known as preterists or post-millennialists, and they actually think that the Antichrist has come? And so when a lot of people say we're in the end times, a lot of the preterists are like, well, that's silly because we know that after Jesus ascended into heaven after 40 years, there was an Antichrist and he did rule and blah, 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 and all of that's been fulfilled. So the part that we're waiting on, I forget what they say, I forget the specifics of the argument, but that we're now beyond that. Have you heard that argument? And I just want to know, if you have, what's your response to it?
Yeah, preterism's like something I studied a while back.
Okay, cool.
I was curious about it because obviously, like, I am not somebody that's going to be like, I believe this and I don't care what anybody has to say. Like, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to see like, okay, am I missing something? What's going on here? So the reason I don't believe preterism, I believe that they have some things right, but they have some things wrong. This is my opinion, mind you.
Okay.
I'm just a human.
That's what I asked. I want to know what you think.
Nobody perfect. This is my opinion. Okay. But I believe in, I believe it's called Amillennialism, which is is different than preterism because I don't believe the Antichrist has come yet. I believe that we are in the millennial reign right now. Let me tell you why. The Bible says that God says, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. And it also says, like, he says that he's going to rule at the right hand of the Father. Right. So he's ruling in the spiritual realm in the kingdom of God. He also told us that the kingdom of God, you can't see it. It's all around you. It's inside you. You don't see it. Like, and he also said when he was here, like, if I was coming to be in command of all these nations, I would bring my army of angels down and I would take it by force. Nobody would be able to stop me, but that's not what I came here to do. The kingdom of God can't be observed like this. It's a different thing because it's a spiritual kingdom, that actually the spiritual kingdom is going to come here on earth eventually, right? So for right now, there's dominion been given over to an entity because he took it from humanity, right? I believe that, I know there's other people that would disagree with me, but I believe that Satan actually is able to manipulate dominion over this earth very easily with corruption, with all kinds of different means. And also not even Satan right now, because I don't believe Satan has fully been unleashed 100%. He may have been unleashed recently, but I don't think he's been unleashed all through time. Because the Bible talks about him being bound before the 1,000-year reign. So I believe there's been 1,000 years that we have. And when you hear about the term 1,000 years, so let me just break this down the fastest I can, but with also being making sense. So 1,000-year reign, the Bible has a term for that. If you look up the Greek term, it is, if you got a Strong's in front of you, look it up. I can't remember the word for it, but it means indeterminate amount of time is what the word means.
Epoch?
So, what's that?
Is the term epoch?
It's not epoch. It's
okay, never mind. Just thought it was helping.
But if you look it up in the Strong's Concordance, which is an online tool for any of you that want to look up the Hebrew, but you can look it up in there, and it shows you that. So the term means indeterminate amount of time. And so this time period between the resurrection of Christ, where he's reigning right now from the heavens, also reigning as the high priest, we're able to go before him, and he approaches the throne for us. He's our high priest, right? So he's ruling right now. And when he comes back, which is what he says he's going to do, when he comes back, he's not coming to grab a bunch of people to go with him, then come back later. He's coming back to rule forever. He's not coming back to rule for 1,000 years and then jump up out of here and let people rule again. When he's coming back, it's like forever, right? He's bringing this temple. They call it the 𝘋𝘰𝘯'𝘕 of gold, this temple that comes down, that's huge, massive, wouldn't even work on a globe Earth anyway. It's so big. Like it would be too big to fit on the globe Earth. It comes down and he rules forever from on the earth. And so that's what I believe happens next. Now, people, I don't know where they get this idea about preterism. How is that possible? Where is he ruling forever on earth? Or, you know, did we miss the boat? What happened? Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? The idea that the Antichrist is come and gone and God's reigning right now on earth, I think is ridiculous. And I don't know why they believe that.
I agree with you.
Yeah, that's possible, but I don't know. I
know why they think it. I know why that, because there's apparently the way that whoever it was, Peter, John, whoever it was, spoke in a matter of urgency, like that that the Antichrist would be there very quickly. And when you count the 40, when you count it or calculate it, apparently it's 40 years. I think the Apologia Studios people believe the same thing. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. And that then suddenly after 40 years, Nero shows up, and Nero is killing Christians and, you know, kicking his wife in the stomach while she's pregnant and being a complete dick to those who love the Lord. So I think that's where that comes from. But I don't claim to have that perspective, by the way. So go ahead. What were you saying, John?
No, Nero definitely is an Antichrist figure. Like he lines up with it a lot. I mean, there's so many things. I actually did a show where I went into Nero and just showed all those different things that make him line up. But there's others in history that have lined up with that as well. Like
you said Attila the Hun.
Attila the Hun. People don't know this, but this was the biggest nation of the world one time. Rome paid tribute to him. China paid tribute to him. He's actually where we get the Arthurian legends. Attila the Hun is like Arthur. He's King Arthur. He's the legend of that. Yeah. So it's like, because all depictions of Attila the Hun that we have today are him of being some Asian looking dude, but all the ancient depictions are him as a knight with long blonde hair, and he's a horse rider that goes around with his knights, killing people everywhere he goes. You know, so they created this kind of like the Asian washed him. They washed him up. They made him look like he's just a chivalrous knight guiding through the world. But in fact, what's that?
Why do you think they did that?
Well, apparently Cleopatra is black, and Queen of England is also black. So why do they do any of that?
There's so much that people don't realize about this world because it's been hidden. It's crazy. So I don't know if you study human anthropology at all, but
no, but I love that stuff.
I did a little.
Every country in Asia, especially, and in Europe, and even in Africa, and all of these were ruled by a ruling class. These ruling class were all either tall, redheaded, or blonde-haired, and they ruled all over the world. Even in Olmec and in South America, you have them everywhere. And these were the knights that we're talking about here. They ruled everywhere.
Giants are traditionally redheaded with 2 sets of teeth and 6 digits. Even what I said earlier, I don't know about Aboriginal culture much in terms of what you just said, but they certainly had giants in the culture. I don't know about the ruling system though. But
they did it because they came with technology. They came with knowledge on how to make society a city type, Babylonian type style, right? But this is when you look for all the devils, that's where you go to. Like, most of these giants were redheaded, tall, big, and powerful. All the original Druid priests were tall, giant Druid priests that practiced magical powers. These were the ruling class. So they won't tell you all that. There's something hidden about all of this, because you have, there's a bunch of intended racism. So like you want to, black people want to believe they were the first, white people want to believe they were the first, not understanding how human genetics works. Human genetics changes based on where you live. There's no way for you to be like, oh, you look like this, you look like that. You live somewhere long enough, your skin's going to get darker if you live near the sun. You live up near where there's no sun and it's all cold all the time, your skin's going to get either lighter, you're going to change your features, you're going to get shorter, you're going to get bigger, whatever. Based on your reality, your body's going to change. Like, if you sit in your chair all day on your ass and you sit on your chair, you're going to get really fat. If you go out, you exercise, you're going to get skinny, right? It's the same with even our skin color. It's amazing, but it's true. I've known people. I grew up in South Texas, which is down at the border, right by Mexico. White people that have the same lineage as me, Irish, whatever, They don't look white anymore. They look like Mexicans. You can't
Wow.
tell because they've been there for so long that they literally, their body's adapted to it, right? So that there's just a division thing, right? Because ultimately we're all human, and then there's this ruling class that ultimately were fallen, from fallen ones that came and kind of took over society. I believe that's what happened. But yeah, I think going back to like what we were talking about, the reason that they would want to hide that, I'm not 100% sure. Now, it's interesting to me. Tartaria is something that's really interesting as well.
I love that topic too.
Yeah,
you have to come back. You have to come back 2 or 3 times. Yeah. I'm so sorry. We're gonna have to use that a few more times. Sorry, go ahead, Tartaria.
Tartaria has been hidden. Attila the Hun obviously was the ruler of the Tartarians at one time. The King Arthur, the ruler of the Tartarians. We have a new king that is actually able to claim Tartarian rule. The interest in Tartaria has never been higher. There's a lot going on with that. So why did they hide it? I'm not 100% sure. There's a reason, and I think a lot of it has to do with hiding what time we're in, time periods. Because if you notice during the Dark Ages, most of what you have during the Dark Ages is not much history recorded. There's not a whole lot of history. Why? I don't know. Is there missing time there? I don't know. But then you have the Arthurian classics that come in right after that to kind of explain the rest of the world. You even have the story of Gog and Magog in London, right? The champions of London. You have all these different stories that just pop out of nowhere. And so I don't know what it is. I wish I could say like, this is what it is, girls. I'm going to tell you right now, but I really don't know. I just know it's interesting. And there's something there that's missing, and I don't get it. Like, I don't get it, but I'm trying to get it. I'm a truth seeker.
Yeah, we're truth seekers. I think that's where we all are. And I think we should probably wrap it up there. But I really do want you to come back.
This was so
it was fruitful.
So for the mind, like, wow, so much to digest and unpack there.
Yeah, but we hardly scratched the surface. I'm so
I know.
we have to end.
That's the thing. We're going to have to do like a 3-part series with you.
I hope so. Would you be down, Jon? Okay,
I'm down. Cool. I'm totally down. Like, I love it. It was an awesome conversation. I enjoyed it so much. And I'm thankful for you being persistent with me too and figuring out these times. And I'm so sorry that I thought you guys were a day behind me. And I'm so like, I was just so mixed up. I don't know.
It's my biggest compliment and my biggest insult that I'm persistent, because it either works for you or it doesn't.
No, it's good. I mean, you got to be persistent, right? Like that's the way you get things done. And I appreciate you for that. I appreciate it a lot. Yeah. And you as well, Lauren. It was great to meet you. And hopefully you got just a little bit more interest in the Nephilim.
The Nephilim. Well, we didn't even talk about the pyramids and how the technology that they can morph rocks into like megalithic. Like we have so much.
I'm very interested in the pyramids, but you know what would be cool, Dia, is to have this conversation with all of us here, but also bring Rachel Seif into this because she's in Egypt right now, right?
Rachel was currently she's of Egyptian heritage, but she is in Egypt right now. Cool. Yeah,
but that would be cool. Like if she could somehow lead us to the pyramids whilst we
chat. Jon can give us the virtual tours.
Yeah. Go underneath the Sphinx for us and check out.
Yeah, and show us what you see.
They have a Sphinx in the Grand Canyon. Ooh, there's another subject.
Yeah. And we have a pyramid. We have a pyramid in Australia.
The Gympie Pyramid, but it's covered by grass. We don't know what's there. They're destroying it in the next 10 years. Well, thank you guys and everyone for tuning into this fascinating, awesome, mind-stimulating discussion of Don't Be Deceived, which we get from Galatians 6:7. And thank you, Jon, so much for joining us. We really, really, really had fun.
I had fun too. Thank you, girls, so much. It was awesome.
Jon, would you like to wrap it up with a bit of prayer?
That's a good idea, Lauren.
That's a good idea. Father, thank you so much for everything that you've given us, for the ability to live this life and to understand what we're supposed to do. Just the ability to know who you are and know who we are is important. If there's anybody listening tonight that doesn't know that, I pray that you reveal yourself to them. I pray that you forgive them, and I pray that you enter their life in a way that they won't be able to ever forget you. They won't be able to ever leave your side. And I pray that anybody that's experiencing any kind of demonic force upon their life or any kind of opposition, I pray that you help them and guide them through this. And I pray that you guide all of us and give us safety and give us the ability to speak your name unhindered for as long as you'll give us for that, Father. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. That was wonderful.
Glory to God. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you, girls.